Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Seth the Programmer, and I'm really intrigued by this. As soon as I seen the thumbnail go up on Twitter the other day, I was like, this is a great idea for a video. Told my girlfriend, she was like, whoa, that is a really interesting idea for a video. Could Light and L survive Squid Game? I love Squid Game, love Death Note, and it is a really interesting question. Light and L are very smart people and very capable, physically as well, so I reckon they got a good chance. In my head, though, it's just like the last one where I'm trying not to spoil stuff, people haven't seen it, obviously. But the glass one, I don't see how anyone could, that is just luck, really. But let's get into it. Let's see if Light and L could survive Squid Game.
I was watching a Squid Game with some friends, and I noticed a lot of things that people came up with in response to solving the numerous games that players would go through. With one passing thought I had being, what would someone like Light or L do in this situation? How would they handle these games? After all,
this is going to be interesting.
Have somewhat of a semi-realistic sense of genius about them, unlike a lot of other fictional geniuses you see. So as I went through all my notes about the characters, I realized that the result of the Squid Game Death Games existing in Death Note would actually not only be a really interesting dissection of L and Light as characters, but also it's honestly a really fun story to write in general. I also thought it would be interesting to see and kind of explore what would happen if L and Light competed against each other in these games as well, and their differences in ideology affecting how they played certain games and scenarios. All in all, I think I wrote it down pat, and I hope you guys enjoy. I know I did writing this.
Sick.
We also do have to place them in a story-esque scenario to really dive into all of the
makes sense. Yeah, makes sense why they're there and that.
Between the characters, and fully explore how these characters would interact with each other and flesh it out to its utmost. If we place them in a void, we can't flesh out all the details as well. Also, there will be spoilers for Squid Game.
I've seen it, love it,
and even for
it's
Death
fine.
Note.
Obviously.
In this world, the secret death games of South Korea that seek to gamble and exploit desperate human lives exist in the world of Death Note, and neither the Super Detective L or the God of the New World, Kira, are very fond or ignorant of their existence. But due to their battle against each other, they never had enough time to fully take these games down or investigate them to their utmost.
Cool.
Fortunately for the two of them, there is a perfect place and time for them to take on the death games together and possibly take one or the other out at the same time. Misa Amane is apprehended by L in the Japanese task force and interrogated under solitary confinement due to suspicion of being the second Kira. After 3 days of this, Rem, her Shinigami, threatens Light Yagami Kira himself to save her. Cornered and with his hands forced, Light devises a plan. He would go up to the task force and say that due to the evidence pointing towards him, he might be Kira while unconscious or unaware.
Right, so we're still going with the story of the anime here.
By this, L plays ball and puts Light in confinement under his own request. For the next 7 days, the murders by Kira stop, and it starts to look like Light really is Kira. That's when Light gives a veiled message to get rid of it, leading to his Shinigami Ryuk removing Light's ownership of the Death Note and his memories of being Kira. And in day 15, Matsuda, a member of the task force, informs the rest of the squad that the past 2 weeks' worth of criminals are killed all at once, giving Light an alibi and leaving L at a loss. After a whole 53 days and one last test from L, Light and Misa are free from confinement, although still under surveillance. In the end, Light is handcuffed to L and works to find the new Kira together with the task force while L sits around acting depressed, unsatisfied because he wanted Light to be Kira.
Got the music going.
This attitude would lead to many physical fights between Light and L until Light says he discovers something, just like in canon. However, in this canon, in Korea, there is a larger influx of people dying of heart attacks and in other areas, and it seems as though in the past, hundreds of people in debt go missing every year at exactly the same time. Whoever was responsible for this probably now has the Death Note. This is actually a realistic assumption, as Light was able to deduce that the Yotsuba group
the Yotsuba
organization, people over the course of 3 months to increase their company's standings, in which case they thought it would take a god to do so. But in this case, the VIPs of the Death Games, in their stupidity and boredom, started killing people just for fun and for profit, then immediately wanted to try this notebook out on their next set of Death Games as soon as possible. L would say that he was actually aware of these strange disappearances of people in debt, but decided that Kira and his other cases were ultimately more important.
Like prioritizing that,
Not only Light's theory was correct, but to solve these disappearances once and for all. L would comment that Light once said that if an adult had the Death Note, he would use it for money or his own benefit, and this certainly seemed to fit the bill of this new
The Squid
Kira.
Games, right,
Light
right.
in this timeline, before losing his memories, specifically requested Rem to hand the Death Note to these VIPs specifically,
Right, okay, cool.
and the main boss of the Death Games, knowing that this would be the best way to eventually take out all of them, and possibly L at the same time if the situation went perfectly. Meaning everything was going to Light's plan, but this worked in L's favor as well. L, with his international police connections and database, could immediately look into these mass vanishings even further, and notice that some people had reported surviving a series of crazy children's games.
Oh yeah, because after the first round, he tells them, doesn't it? Yeah, cool.
Which the police wrote off as crazy hearsay from poor people. However, L believed the stories, and the idea of death games intrigued him even further, and thought it might not only be fun to catch the killers, but perhaps to even compete in the games
participate.
and win. However, on the surface, he'd never admit that. It does seem like Light was onto something after all, and he is starting to build a new theory of his own. For them to get into the games and figure out where they are, L would have to suggest sending in criminals under his employment under the name of Weddy and Ibra as examples.
Right, okay.
However, Light, being good, says that if they are to play games for survival, that he should go, as it increases the odds of said survival more, as well as the fact that he'd rather himself die than anybody else. And he doesn't want people dying to catch Kira, which he feels
because again, he has no memory of being Kira, so he would be very much like, I need to find out and do this.
That he wants to partake in these games, and L, thinking that this might be a challenge by Light, sees this as an opportunity to catch Kira himself. There is actually a dark side to L that wants to
suggest you watch my other Death Note content.
Yeah,
they're good videos, they're really good.
L will actually do things himself, such as when he confronted who he thought was Kira face to face. This is definitely slightly out of character for L to go to these games with Light, as normally he'd probably just set Weddy to follow the guards in their vans and hack into their mainframes and steal data to spy on them from afar. However, in this timeline, L feels some kind of uncontrollable plot-induced urge to take on what he thinks is Kira's challenge.
Plot-induced. Love it, yeah. Like, for this to work, he would have to go, yeah.
L out of character, and some reasons he can't explain, with the winner being the winner of it all. There's a side of L that wants Light to be Kira, and he wants to justify it more.
God, that red light, green light was something else, wasn't it?
Some new Kira. It's still L's battle of pride against Kira, and more than just a case for him. For an in-character, L would have ended the Death Games easily, without having to ever interact with them himself. But in this timeline, with Light's influence and his pride, we'll see how L and Light handled the games themselves.
Yeah, and like, what are they going to do with each other?
More fun that way. It's also a bit out of character for Light to want the game to continue at all, and would more than likely want it immediately ended, such as with the Yotsuba group killing people as tests, that he didn't allow for L's investigation to go more smoothly. But once again, it's just more fun this way. There might also be a side of Light that would want to have fun with this as well, but near the surface, as foreshadowed in Chapter 1, Boredom. Oh, and also, we're just going to assume that Light and L learned Korean for the trip.
Right, fair enough, yeah. There's that as well, isn't there? Okay.
So they can easily do that in no time, considering their levels of smart.
They are dead clever, so they could quite possibly do that.
Earth at the age of 8 and stopped World War III, while most super prodigies are considered to have IQs of around 250 plus for just doing high-level adulting at young ages.
High-level adulting.
Considering that L was smarter than any adult in his field, and is considered smarter than numerous heroes put together in the Murder Cases novels written by Nisio Isin, that the author of Death Note Oba enjoyed very much. Learning a new language in a week would be nothing for more than likely either of them. Also, for those of you who were asking, why isn't Misa going to be in this?
I would never allow this.
Anyway, the task force is easily able to spy on people in debt that can be targets of the game, and after weeks of waiting, they are eventually given their first clue as a man named Sung Gi-hun is approached by a man in a suit and offers to play a game with Dakji for an absurd amount of money. Eventually, Gi-hun is given a card as well as a few others they were trailing. In this case, the task force offers to pay off Gi-hun's and another man named Cho Sung-woo's debt for their cards and invitations. Getting invitations and passwords to get into the vans, the games would begin.
Cool.
Light and the super detective arrive in the cafeteria after a mysterious car ride. Light is surprised to find he's now dressed in a green jumpsuit, whereas L makes no expression. L was sure
he's just like, alright, okay.
Was awake the entire trip to the island, unlike Light. At this point, the good Light is a bit too naive and easy to catch by surprise, such as when he was caught off guard by Reiji Namikawa from the Yotsuba group, and admitted that he thought Higuchi was Kira on accident. despite Light being way above his level in terms of smarts. Good Light being naive is a common trend you'll see, and his motions get in the way of things that somewhat cloud his more critical judgment, unlike
Oh
L
my god,
at
yeah.
this time, whose mental state is more similar to evil Light.
Right.
Being a super detective and genius that can monitor dozens of monitors and sounds at once,
All at the same time, yeah.
shift through all of them with superhuman efficiency, L would immediately deduce many things about his surroundings. First, that there were 456 players, there were strange drawings
On the walls, yeah.
and that one player, number 1, was not like the rest. He would also
Yeah, do you reckon he'd clock on straight away? Like, yeah.
with the masks of the guards when he was awake and being redressed by them. He also may have sneaked something in just like a few other players could, but we'll go over those possibilities later.
Cool.
The guards come in with Oompa Loompa music blaring through your TVs and presents a contract to all the players, which gives them all the illusion of choice in the death games. Unlike the other players, Light actually reads the contract and notices how the contract is completely superficial and has no legal value.
Yeah, nothing,
You
yeah.
can't just sign your life away in 2021 on a piece of paper, or can you? L would
No.
make no comment as he doesn't
Matt Pat's
care
done a
to sign his
game,
alias
like a
player
film theory
256,
video on it. I
also
think my
known as
girlfriend was watching the other day.
with Light giving his appropriate name as player 218, also known as Cho Sung-woo.
Right.
They take their pictures as usual and walk their way to the game
Cool.
stage. The front man may eventually recognize that Light and L are stand-ins, but would probably agree that so long as they play the game,
Yeah, it's like as long as the games go on, it don't matter, does it? Make it entertaining for the VIPs. There you go, yeah. There you go.
Red light, green light begins with the degenerate from the original canon running off and getting killed as usual, which causes a massive
Jesus.
domino effect of
Yeah.
players getting wiped out. This is actually the first place that good light could also die. Unlike L, good light is actually very empathetic and reacts strongly to certain stimuli, and if he wasn't fully sure what the game was going into this, he may freak out or be startled at the sudden barrage.
Yeah, like everyone dying and getting shot. Yeah.
But if
I know,
he
I would.
simply
Jesus.
came in this knowing full well what was going to happen, then he would survive. Some examples of Light's mental state after witnessing atrocities would be such as him killing Takuo Shibuya
Oh, yeah, with the van and that, like,
car
yeah.
crash, and he had somewhat of a reaction, but was pretty sickened and overwhelmed by it later, to the point where he couldn't even stand straight and was having mental distress. This was when Light was blatantly more evil and had the death note as well at first, let alone just flat out good Light.
Yeah.
Other examples would be when his father pointed a gun to he and Misa's head. So I'll let you
Mate, yeah,
guys
he
decide
freaked
on
out,
that.
didn't he?
For the story, Light doesn't freak out or get too startled, since he was probably warned in advance, and we want to explore more things.
Yeah, we need to
about
get into the other games
Most
as
of
well,
the
like how they
players that
deal
do
with it.
survive the initial barrage are frozen in fear. L and player 1 would seem to effortlessly keep marching forward and playing the game perfectly.
Right.
This would also increase L's suspicion of player 1 even further, but L plays along.
See, I never thought anything about him at all, and I was a bit disappointed with the reveal for him, but
psychological states, such as when he could pick up on minor verbal cues that Misa had regained her memories, just based on her simply saying that she would stay safe for Light, when normally she was gung-ho over dying for him. In this case, player 1's mental state is a pretty big anomaly compared to the other players. Light would be too busy getting his head straight, but would eventually serious it up enough to finish the game.
yeah, it's like, oh my god, come on, gotta get into there. Like they did.
Surviving this time, with some like Ali just doing better than before, if anything, due to not having to help the canon player 456.
Damn.
Light and L would be replacing. Also, the frontman would not use the death note during this game, as the gunfire and starting people is what adds to the intensity.
Yeah, that's the
and
idea
scares
of
more
the game.
people into making mistakes and dying. It's a part of the game and can't really be replaced. I'd say this is also true with the Honeycomb game as well.
Yeah.
There are many ways to beat red light, green light, but overall the main deciding factor of this game is to simply listen to the sounds of the statue and not what it's
And then
really
just
looking at,
go
and
when it's not looking, yeah.
react to the deaths around you. Other than that, even children can beat this game,
Yeah.
hence it being a children's game.
Exactly,
So
they're all
for a
children's games, aren't they?
sociopath like L,
Apart from
who's
that
not
graphics
bothered
thing
by
at the end,
deaths
but-
around him, just like Nier wasn't when the SBK were blowing their brains out right in front of him and literally splattering him with their blood, and someone as smart as Light, this should be a cakewalk. After the game, all the players would freak out, as usual, and Light would bring up to the guards that the players have a right to vote if the game
Wanna
should
leave?
be
Yeah,
ended.
right.
The guard then brings up a voting panel as normal that begins with player 456, or L, Surprising to most people, L would actually vote to continue the games, which would
Right.
enrage Light. L would deflect this as usual and try to argue it's for the investigation and that they've already started. But come around Light's turn, he demands the game to be ended after feeling sympathetic for the other players wanting the game to end.
Okay.
Eventually, it would just be a 50-50 vote again, just like before, and player 1, who L would note, gets the last word, votes to end the game.
Right.
Many people don't know this, but L is actually okay with sacrificing others to get further into a case. For his
Yes,
own
he is, isn't he?
crime,
It's, yeah.
sacrificing police or FBI agents,
Putting them
and
out
in
there.
Whammy's
Oh
house,
yeah,
where
the
he
freaking guy
originally
on
came
death row
from,
at the beginning.
even willing to sacrifice children for fun and games and to try and create super detectives like him with his mentor Watari. L is overall not merciful, and in pretty much every scene in the entire manga, L says things that are very two-faced, and is trained to lie about anything that can benefit his cases specifically.
Yeah,
He's
he'll do
almost like a
anything to,
machine. Even
like,
the author
get
calls him
the
slightly
result he
evil.
wants.
So, yes, L would want the games to continue for his case, and for his own amusement, maybe. Whereas Light, who wanted the Yotsuba killings to stop immediately, would want the games to stop as well
Yeah.
if the other players wanted out.
Makes sense.
After returning home, L would eventually convince Light that the game should continue because of plot, and
Yeah, of
to
course.
just let all the players
Plot
who
induced.
genuinely don't want to play or die to not come back. Light realizes that it is ultimately up to whoever comes back at that point, and decides to return to the games with L. Deep down, Light also had fun. L also says he'll go alone if Light doesn't, which further pressures Light. L also
Yeah, he's gonna
reminds
feel like he
Light
has
that
to go
doesn't
then,
have
isn't
much
he?
of a choice and raises their arms that would be handcuffed together. Even Soichiro, a goody two-shoes and Light's father on the task force, who is completely against the Yotsuba killing business competition for the case's progression in canon, would have a harder argument against stopping the game since the players are willingly coming back to the game,
Yeah.
knowing that they can die in this case, rather than them getting killed.
Yeah, they're not
against
actually
their knowledge
forcing
in the first
them
game.
without
This
the knowledge
time,
of what's happening,
Matsuda,
yeah.
who has been feeling inadequate about his contribution to the Kira case, just like in canon,
Yeah.
would probably decide to tail them. But before returning, Light and L would have plenty of time to deliberate and discuss their strategies for the upcoming games and any leads they have on the Death Note's location. L would say he has no leads other than the paintings on the wall, even though he blatantly suspects player 1 of something,
yeah.
although he doesn't know what his exact role is. He still doesn't
Because the paintings on the
trust
wall
Light, and
are
in
the
this
games as
situation,
well,
he
aren't
has
they?
to be
Like, they
more
give hints at
careful
what the games
with
are.
Yotsuba group situation. When they arrive at the games again, Light and L both don't pass out during the car ride this time since Light is now on guard, and things proceed as normal, and then the second game begins. For the second game, the two detectives would immediately notice that when they were told to pick shapes, that two people immediately rush for triangle, which makes them suspicious. This must be Honeycomb, which
Yeah,
they had
so they'll
researched and theorized
know that
before the game
someone's getting
started.
information
But even
in,
then,
right.
they could deduce that something about triangle must be somewhat optimal if two people are just going to rush over to it without question. However, L would probably play dumb with the old man and still choose umbrella or something more difficult. During the game,
Try and throw
Light
him
would
off.
be prepared for people being killed by gunfire and would not flinch or freak out. He would easily pass after choosing triangle.
Yeah.
L would probably lick the honeycomb to death comedically to help the old man pass.
Oh, yeah, he likes
and
his sweets
because
as well,
he
doesn't he? So that'd be
sweets,
quite funny,
pass
yeah.
pretty effortlessly as well. Considering normal people thought of this strategy when I was watching the show with friends, I think Super Genius L could easily
Would
do that.
do that as well,
with
yeah,
plenty
yeah.
of days of preparation, and it just seems like something he would
It
do.
made sense,
After the
like,
game,
it
this
was
is a
really
great
weird,
moment
but,
for
yeah.
Matsuda to introduce that he snuck into Light and L just as the doctor was snuck off by the guards to do surgery. Matsuda could reveal he found the notebook they were planning to use during one of the games and could give it to Light and L to see. If this did happen, Light would become evil again.
yeah.
He would want to keep the notebook from the front man for himself and convince L to let him hold on to it. L would want Light to keep the notebook as well to see if he exposes himself further or if his real adversary had returned. Matsuda could try to introduce himself any time between Honeycomb and the Marble game, so you can insert your own headcanon.
Oh, God,
But
the
if
Marble
task
game,
force
man.
and the situation existed in this same world, Matsuda actually might try to do this in canon to try and be useful, and the task force might also relocate in Korea temporarily for this particular mission, making it even
Probably
easier
would,
for
yeah.
Matsuda to try and sneak in and tail the games. If Matsuda never snuck in and overheard the notebook and found it, then I can break down what would happen if Good Light played the rest of the games too, so we'll kind of just make a weird timeline split.
Okay.
Matsuda wouldn't be the only person to sneak in either, but I'll get into that later. Upon returning to the main area, L would slam on the ground in shock as he would see Ryuk, the Shinigami, hovering
Yeah.
above the old man.
Ooh.
The old man is actually implied to be the main boss of the games and thus would get the Death Note. He has the most
Yeah.
jagged mask with the Jags representing rank within the group, more than likely. So Light would also have a delayed reaction, but would tell L to calm down and not make a scene, or else it would blow their cover.
Yeah, everyone's
going
to be
to
onto us. Like, come on now.
excuse for why he freaked out and turned it into a joke. But deep down, he had solved many things about the Kira case by confirming that Shinigami actually exist, including Light and Misa's meeting at Note Blue, and even an old case concerning the BB murder cases and the Shinigami eyes. It would also confirm L's theory that the old man did not belong and was in fact the owner of the Death Note. And Light would also make note of this too, but would be trying to look to take him out so he could become the owner of his own notebook again. L and Light would try to talk to the old man, and the old man would just ask to join their team they have.
Right.
Light would be trying to get the old man's name, but he would constantly just play stupid and act like his old brain was forgetting his own name, which would irritate Light, but he
Yeah,
wouldn't
he gets
be able
so
to do
annoyed. Like,
anything
come on, just
about
give me
it.
your name
The
back.
old man also has a good alibi, and it's very believable as he wets himself and is clearly very sick and out of it a lot of the time. That night, killings would begin, and during these killings, if Light
All
is
the
still
murders,
good,
man.
he'd more than likely want to save Player 67 from 101 and help other people around. Meanwhile, both L and Player 1 would be completely gone, and evil Light may try to find Player 1 to kill him, but wouldn't be able to really find him. And even if he did find the old man at night by spotting Ryuk, L would be next to him, as L knew Light would target him if he regained his memories. Evil Light might still feel inclined to save Player 67, but that's debatable. Even Evil Light would feel inclined to team up with Ali, however, as Ali is a genuinely good person.
Yeah,
even
my
to
God,
Evil
that
Light's
marble
standards.
game. I was
The
crying
night
my
would
eyes
end
out,
with
man.
Player 1 saying he wants the games to stop,
Yeah.
and L
I'm
might be
scared.
next to the old man
I'm
where he was on top
scared.
of his bunk to show he knew where he was the whole time and just keeping track of him. The next game would be Tug of War, which once again the detectives were ready for. But even if they weren't, they still have many things going for them. Due to the circumstances, their team would be the same one as in canon, but just with L and Light respectively. In terms of physicality, both Light and L are more physically fit and around
they
the
are.
same
They're
size
quite
as
capable, aren't
Sang-woo
they?
and Ji-hun. However, unlike them, Light and L are youthful and are around or nearing their primes. L in particular is so strong he can launch Light off of the ground into the air with one sweep kick, and has enough stamina to play an intense high-level tennis game.
You just wouldn't think it looking at him, though.
Without even breaking a sweat. Even Light can punch L with so much force it launches L tumbling over himself and into a wall. And due to this, they'd just be stronger and smarter than the canon team, even without
so it would be
preparations.
easier
In this
for them
case,
to win.
The old man would still give them tips on how to tire out the enemy, such as leaning back and so forth. If they did have preps, which if things went as usual, they definitely, without a doubt, in character would have prep if random YouTubers and watchers could come up with preparations for these games, then Light and L know how to cheat at this game as well. Some of these cheats would include anchoring, which is looping the rope around the guy at the end for more control, blocking with your elbows above knee level so that the rope gets stuck on your team
There's
easier,
techniques, man,
etc.
cool.
Light and L could even utilize the metal railing to their advantages too as a foothold. All in all, they'd win if the old team did. Even Sang-woo's drop and grab strategy is a basic kid strategy that a super genius would easily be able to replicate.
That was class when they made them, like, fall over.
So I actually had to drop this part in my script after I finished, but after Tug of War, there is something that the old player 456 says to 101 that night that sort of prevents them from having another night raid, an attack that we'll have to go over. In this scene, 101 comes over to the canon 456 and tries to antagonize him, in which 456 replies that if he were under 101's leadership during the night attack, he'd go for him first. Which makes 101 question his teammates' motives.
It did, didn't it? He was like watching them all and he just refusing to sleep and that, wasn't he?
101 antagonizes Light or L in this case. Both Light and L would easily be able to convince him not to do anything. However, Light is more keen to make 101 wary of his own men before attacking him, as he is more manipulative.
Psychological warfare.
L would probably be able to bring up the basic facts that he's the most dangerous opponent, and thus he is the most likely to get ganged up on by everyone at night and dealt with so that they have a higher chance of winning. Even if 101 did attack that night, it's very likely he would get killed by his own guys eventually, as foreshadowed, and L and Light in particular would be able to put up a better fight than most people think as well, which I'll get into later. But regardless, this event is unlikely to happen, even with Light and L. The next game would be Marbles.
Oh, God.
If they didn't know this game was coming, Light and L might choose each other as partners.
Oh, God, but then
However, in this
that would...
case, since they know in advance, they know it's a marble game. If it's Evil Light, he would try to team up with the old man, but L would more than likely insist on it since Light is too suspicious.
Yeah, 'cause if they team up, one of them has to die.
Kira one-on-one. This would lead Evil Light either without a partner or him teaming up with Ali. If it was good Light, he may deduce that there's an odd number of players and force himself to be loaned out and not have a partner, as he would probably refuse to want to kill someone in a one-on-one game, especially Ali. However, Evil Light might actually go through with trying to kill other players in the game, and if Evil Light teamed up with Ali, he would easily manipulate him and
It's
kill
such a
him
shame.
just
It's like,
did before. But if Light was forced to play against Ali or didn't realize the full scope of the game at first, he may actually allow Ali to win and die during this game. Like I said, though, the chances of Light dying during this game are very low and would demand some plot-induced stupidity due to their knowledge of the game.
I love
and
that
if Light
phrase.
is evil,
That's
this
class.
is just not happening. Even if his moral compass is disgusted by it, he'd see it as another sacrifice to get closer to killing L in Player 1, thus saving the world. L would likewise play with the old man and joke if he knows that much about the games and his true characters, and if he's ever seen a Shinigami mockingly, etc. L would probably try to play something that could guarantee his victory, such as Nin. Likewise, Evil Light could probably play this game as well, in which he plays 20 marbles down with you and your opponent, picking 1 or 2 marbles at a time, with whoever picking the last marble being the loser. And if you start first at this game and pick 2 marbles, you are guaranteed to win the game so long as you pick the opposite as your opponent from there on out. Light could definitely also say he is setting up the game on some cinema summary strats and get Ali's marbles, then just hand them to the guard as a win. L might also do the same to guarantee victory, but L might also genuinely try to play a game with Player 1 to see what he's like or how smart he is.
Yeah, like test him out,
The old man might like L and tell him
see it
his
as a
real
challenge.
name's Oh Il Nam, as L has been on friendly terms on the surface since the get-go, even though he's actually extremely suspicious and low-key.
I like that, yeah. I think L would clock on.
Things about Light in the words of the Death Note author, despite trying to say Light was his friend, quote-unquote. The losers of the marble game will be shot and killed as usual. The old man may suggest that if the Death Note is lost, to do this strategy or to have the games go on as usual without the Death Note, even though they were originally planned. Another strat for them is for the front man to use a paper of the Death Note in case he loses the actual notebook, in which case the losers of the marble games would simply collapse of heart attacks 40 seconds after their goodbyes. Old Il Nam, in this case, would never die, but could simply
head out.
die of a heart attack, which is way more believable and easier to pull off than hoping the other player walks away from him and doesn't see the guard fake shoot him or something. After this, everyone would be told to pick a number, and pretty much every player would try to rush and pick numbers in the middle so that they wouldn't have to go first or last for whatever reason. The detectives would know that going last is the only answer to this next game, and if they didn't, they would more than likely try to convince every player to end the game based on nobody but the last player is going to survive, and that there was a 1 in 216,144 chance of the first player making it. Although it's very likely many would still try to keep playing anyway and knew they were taking their chances. They'd have to either deduce that the glass panels reflected light differently, and that they could try to sneak over the metal bars that hold the glass in place rather than jumping glass piece
It's still
to piece.
surprising no one even tried this.
As I said before, Light and L would simply grab the last 2 jackets if possible alongside player 67, as in canon. Things would proceed as normal, but instead of Wu pushing the glassmaker over, it'd be Light Yagami or player 67. And Light would figure pushing this player to save the rest is a basic decision that doesn't come off as too suspicious, but ultimately reveals a piece of Light's character to L if he does. Just like in canon, the 3 of them eat, although L would probably refuse since it doesn't have sugar on it. Player 67 would be injured and they'd continue in the waiting room, where all the games would be painted on the walls. Squid Game is the last game. And during this waiting period, Light may try to swindle player 67's name out of her if he made good relations with her and write her name down in his death note in his own blood, so long as L wasn't sitting just right next to him. Then she would pass away without Light having to make any obvious movements to L, leaving just the both of them. Otherwise, L may suggest ending the game if she survives, although it is counterintuitive considering he knows that Light is probably Kira again, and he can confirm for sure with the next game. Regardless, the girl either passes out or is killed by Light Yagami somehow, and the games would continue if not ended in vote. Another detail to note is that Death Note highlights over and over and over again that Light is just amazing with the ladies. That he just has infinite charm and charisma talking to women for some reason. Now, this isn't to say he would seduce whatever girl he's talking to, but he can easily earn a woman's trust and understands them a lot. Such as when Naomi Misora, a girl who wasn't attracted to Light as an example, was ultimately swayed into giving her a real name despite being wary and cautious using aliases and so on, and even being a super genius detective in her own right, more so than really any character in Squid Game could dream of. So yes, Light would more than likely be able to get player 67's name or trust, and could easily betray her at any time.
Definitely.
The final game is up to Light versus L, in which Light would pick offense and L would pick defense, just like in their tennis game.
Right.
L would suggest to end the game for sure here, but Light would say that he doesn't think he wants to anymore, and possibly admit he's Kira to L, since there's no consequences to doing so anymore. This is the perfect opportunity to kill L and get away with it. Even if people were watching or found out, he'd have the perfect alibi that he was forced to. In a fight between Light and L, we actually know some objective details that actually tell us who would win if these two actually played Squid Game to the deaths with knives. The first fact is their cardio. Light and L play a game of tennis at a pretty equal level.
Oh, yeah.
And during this, Light tries way harder, but L still gives it a shot. After the game, Light is huffing and drenched with sweat, whereas L doesn't have a single drop on him, and doesn't seem to be gasping for any air. And in their fights against each other at the HQ, Light punches L in the face and sends him flying into a wall. However, this is when the detective is off guard, and when he is on guard, not only can he borderline tank punches from Light and barely flinch, he doesn't even think anything of it. While getting punched in the face, he simply psychoanalyzes Light in the case instead of worrying about the
tough
fight.
cookie, man. He's a tough cookie.
So hard it launches him off at his feet into the air. Not only this, but L is confirmed to know capoeira that he learned after the BB murder cases.
Damn.
While Naomi Misora subdued him without difficulty at the end of the novel with it. While Light knows zero known martial arts, and in the L
that book's class.
novels, L is
Another
also
note.
known to
So
disarm
class.
armed opponents, such as when he disarmed Hatsune with the same move Naomi beat him up with previously. L is also shown to be one-shotting trained police officers and grown men as well. Comparatively, Light only got away with fighting L because L was more than likely just testing him, and Light may get cocky due to this, and think that L might be unhealthy due to his diet in comparison, and that he's fought him before and got seriously destroyed. L would more than likely simply knock Light out of the balance rather than kill him after disarming his knife from him and then win the game. In character, Light would have set up Watari or backup to arrive at the island around the time the final game started, and Light may be spared if L puts up a scene. Light would also have had Weddy return to the island with them and place surveillances on the island so that the HQ could record and watch the games themselves, in which case, even if L died, they would know that Light was more than likely Kira and apprehend him. So no matter who won the actual death game, L was going to win no matter what in the end. The death games would get shut down by the police, Ilnam would be captured and convicted as the third Kira, and Light would either be put to death or detained once the death note was removed from his possession and he lost his memories again. There is a moral ambiguity of Light losing his memories and then killing him is there, but even Light would accept this punishment if proof was put before him.
Definitely,
Otherwise,
fine,
Light, also known as Kira, would die in the death game, and L would be the winner of not only said game, but the Battle of Pride. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, some things had to be taken a bit out of character for the function and for us to really explore all the details of it. So I hope you enjoy that. Really, the only thing I'd say is mainly out of character is Light or L even going to the games or letting them happen after learning of them. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. And if you liked, be sure to subscribe and let me know if there's any other crossovers or videos you'd like to see. As always, you can always check out Batman vs. Kira.
That was good.
Yeah, man. Which a lot of people liked. And there's also a video on who's actually smarter.
That's cool as well.
Light or L that you can also check out. Until next time.
That was a good video. That was cool. Cool idea. Cool concepts. Like he said, he had to like make up some little bits that were a bit out of character, but didn't work otherwise. Bam, bam, bam. And if you've not seen Squid Game, my god, get onto it. So freaking good. Boo. Bam, bam, bam. Boo. So yeah, sick. Love it. Love it. Very believable in some of the things, the scenarios that brought up and the way they'd act. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I like the whole idea of L suspecting number one, the old guy, because you would, if you were as smart as him and you go in, because you don't think about the old guy being that way at all, but then so cool idea giving him the death note as well, so that when he sees, he touches the death note, you can see the Shinigami as well. That's nice little touches. I like it. That's class. Thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, upload links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month less helps support the channel. Greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. See you guys next time.